Look, you're going to work your ass off to build that kick-ass business like we talk about, highly profitable, gives yourself some lifestyle, and then you go get lazy on risk management as it relates to safety. You only need someone to have a very bad experience on one of your building sites, and all of that hard work can go out the window. And that's really sad, because now you're back to square one if you're lucky, because something negative has happened on your building site, which could have been avoided. How old are you going to be before you start to experience life like you want it? I want to tell you right now, whether you like it or not, there is a better way to do business. Hi everyone, welcome to the Business for Builders podcast again. My name's Max, I'm your host. I'm the CEO and president here at Smith & Sons in Canada, and I am the ambitious founder of EliteBusinessAdvisory.com, which is where I coach mostly general contractors and builders. Thanks for chiming in or tuning in. I appreciate you if you're a long-time listener, and certainly if you're a first-time listener, I appreciate you checking us out, and I hope you find some value and some things that you can tuck under your arm and deploy straight away to make your business better and obviously create more profit and therefore giving you a better lifestyle. Don't forget, like and subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. Get across to Business for Builders VIP, answer the questions there, and I'll let you in. That's a private group for builders and general contractors. Really, it's a community of individuals with a common goal, and there's lots of guys and gals in there that have very similar situations, and if we can get some conversation happening inside of that, obviously I look after that personally, and I'm happy to help out where I can, but I really want to see if we can get the community helping the community. If you've got some expertise and you've got some experience, that is a valuable asset for all of us to have. Right, let's get cracking as usual. Really want to provide information and value, because knowledge is power, and we want to make you more powerful, more profitable in your building companies. Okay, so today, basically, because this month is all about mindset, really focusing on the human organic part of your business, which is you, and you are your most valuable asset. So we want to really make sure that we're aware of certain fundamentals, and make sure that we don't just kind of sort of move forward thinking there's nothing wrong with what we're doing. Maybe we want to take some stock, do a bit of an audit. And so today, we're just going to quickly chat about the concepts around thrive or dive. So as builders, what we want to do is we want to thrive. Of course we do. We don't really want our business going into a nosedive. We really want to avoid failure at all costs. That's generally the thing that we want to take care of. Success isn't just about building structures and, checklists and all those kinds of things. It's about building a resilient company or business that can weather any storm. So we're going to basically cover 7 areas where I will give you, some things that, some obvious things where you want to thrive inside of that area. And some things, where you want to avoid the nosedive. And so we're going to cover those 7 things real quick here. But as general contractors, we face constant challenge, obviously rising costs, labour shortages, demanding clients. But they're not just obstacles, they're opportunities to really set ourselves apart as operators in the building and construction game. So 7 areas, thrive or dive. Number 1, vision and strategic planning. Okay, so if we're going to thrive, we really want to understand the importance of having a clear vision, for your company. And that comes down, I guess, to you as the individual, because that's going to require a little bit of vision of your own, but then it's going to require that you have some creativity in and around that as well. A lot of the time, the vision has got to do with what is it that you have that is of value to your target demographic. So it's really about, you want to deliver construction service at the highest level to provide peace of mind and security for, homeowners or something along those lines. What's the vision? In other words, what is it that you deliver as a company that's going to really, I guess, improve somebody's, own position and their situation? Obviously, we want to talk about, short-term and long-term goal setting, both financially and operationally. So, what is the goal for your business? This is what we're trying to do in vision and strategic planning. We want to talk about what does the infrastructure look like, around the business, and what is that going to take financially, and get some level of definition. We don't really want to be very vague. I think that, maybe if this is the first time you've heard someone talk about developing a vision and strategic planning, and make reference to goal setting, it might be a thing where you'll start fairly vague. Because I think it's not something you just wake up and go, right, this is my perfect vision and these are exactly the goals I want to achieve. I've not had one client or one franchise builder that's actually been able to really detail that in a first meeting. It doesn't happen in 5 minutes. But it is, here we are talking about, if you want your business to thrive and not nosedive in the areas of vision and strategic planning, you're going to need to consider short-term and long-term goals, and in the areas of finances and operations. And you're going to need to develop a clear vision for your business. What is it that you want your business to look like? Obviously you've got to understand, if you want your business to thrive, you've got to understand the importance of market research and staying ahead of industry trends. I was in a meeting with a client this morning, and we're talking about, I was interviewing an agency on behalf of one of my elite business advisory clients. And, we were talking about, the percentage of investment that's required if we wanted to hit a revenue goal. And yet to do that, sometimes that investment that's required is beyond the financial wherewithal of the operator. And so, I was talking about reverse engineering and going, all right, well, if we want to do $1 million a year and we've got to spend somewhere between 10 and 30 grand a year, is that possible? Well, if it's not, then one of two options. We've got to either downscale the revenue target, do minimal advertising, try and get as much word of mouth and referral to build some operational or expansion capital that we can deploy to advertising. Or if you have got deep pockets, we might actually need to raise the revenue target from $1 million to 1.5, because there's not enough gross profit to facilitate that spend. And so, I think being aware and doing the market research and the strategic planning is very important. But I know full well that it's sometimes hard to look outside of your own situation to have a very good, objective, constructive view of the business as it relates to strategy and vision. And that's, where you're going to need someone else in your corner that can really help you identify, those important components. Right. What do you do to avoid a nosedive as it relates to vision and strategic planning? I think we've got to highlight, really and understand some of the pitfalls and the dangers of, a reactive company management, and lack of planning. So if you are the type of individual who, well, I've got a short fuse and I fly off the handle. Well, that's reactive. And I know better than probably anyone, because I am a little bit of a hothead and a short fuse. And I've talked about this before, but, the word I use all the time is max regulate, because more often than not, when I get out the back of the emotional aspect of that event, I do ask myself, why did I react that way? Why is it that I handled it in such a way? Well, because when emotions go up, your ability to make good decisions goes down. And so, I've got to constantly fight my natural tendency to be reactive and confrontational and combative, instead take a more of a regulated approach to that. And of course, in the event that we are just shooting from the hip, if we want our business to take a nosedive, don't do any strategic planning. Like, that's one sure way of, at best, just maintaining a mediocre, really low impact type business. So, really what we're doing in the way when we're planning strategic, what we're trying to do is set the bar a little bit higher, a little bit further, and then striving to actually, hit that number or hit that point. Because I think if you don't set those goals, well, then how do you harness the power of intent? Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing what you do? And that's really what it comes down to. We've got to figure out why we're doing what we're doing. And what is it, what is the vision for the business? And that really comes down to, it's not what we do. What we do is we renovate or we build houses. Okay, then ask yourself the question, why do we do what we do? That actually changes your thought process around, why it is that you are running a company. Yeah, I want to make a paycheck. Well, if you're working from paycheck to paycheck, your business model's broken. Side note. what we're here to do, because if you're a company owner, you are the one, you're paying all your insurances, you've got all the running costs, you've got all the responsibility, you've got all the stress, the noose is around your neck and the box is under your feet. Why are we not making good profit for that investment? Why are we not making good return on investment? And that's just because lack of planning. So the business at best will just maintain a very low level. At worst, it'll nosedive, and before long, you will run into the ground, which is why 50% of builders go broke in the first 5 years, which is very sad. Okay. Right. The other thing you can do to avoid a nosedive as it relates to vision and strategic planning is you risk the risk of not adapting or changing to market conditions or client needs. In this day and age, I think the clients are more savvy, they're more educated, they want more answers with a high level of clarity and definition than maybe what you got away with 5 years ago. And you want to really understand the power of empathy in your presentation. I think clients, if transactions happen as a natural consequence of delivering or demonstrating massive value, that transmission of value comes from a very empathetic presentation. And so when you as a builder identify with clients and homeowners at a certain level that they appreciate, that's where you start to win brownie points, and not because you're just buttering up with a charismatic presentation, but it has a high level of authenticity. And those individuals, and the individuals that I want to work for, they recognize those attributes. They feel that. They're like, okay, this guy is a genuine article, and he has got a genuine interest in helping us, achieve that result in the way of a renovation or a custom home or what have you. And we feel like we know him pretty well. We know that type of personality, and we trust him. And off the back of that is where I will then hold a competitive advantage. So you just need to consider, what you're doing, to fill the need. So, a thing that I often say is that we find the need of the client and we fill or we speak to that need. And so if I help enough people get what they want, I get what I want. And so we've got to have when we say understand the client needs, we've got to actually couple that to an attitude that says, I'm here to serve, right? And so really there's no entitlement, I'll get what I deserve more often than not. And if you've got an egotistical attitude and you've got this I'm a know-it-all type sort of ambience that the clients pick up on, they smell that blood in the water. And that is a very unattractive position for you to be in, because you don't even know why you're not winning the deals. You're like, I quoted that one and it's got hardly any profit in it. And I said I was going to do it quick and they still didn't go for it. And why did they go for Smith & Sons? They're more expensive and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's because there's an aroma that you're transmitting that the client does not appreciate. And so, again, that is pretty hard for you to figure out, but I'm just trying to bring some awareness around that. And then obviously some education is a little harder to do from a distance. So, maybe just listen to some people around you that are maybe saying the same thing, because maybe they're onto something that will help you if you correct it. Right, the second thing there, to obviously thrive as opposed to and avoid the nosedive in the area of quality and reputation. So, goes without saying, deliver consistent high-quality work. There's a really good way to thrive. Invest in the best materials and skilled labor, and then focus on exceeding client expectations to build a strong reputation and client loyalty. I think there's a lot of fairly basic principles there as it relates to developing a quality and a reputation, delivering quality and developing a reputation at a high level. But I think too often we are in it for ourselves, and therefore we start cutting corners and we start really going counter to those qualities I just outlined. And so really we actually really, maybe it works in the short term, but what I've found is that those types of, they're really get rich quick type strategies that are only good for a short term. And then when it comes down to it, and where it requires a higher level of authenticity and more of the genuine article, you run out of puff. It just hasn't got the legs. So things to avoid as it relates to quality and reputation, to avoid a nosedive, obviously those pitfalls of cutting corners, to save cost, that'll eventually bite you in the ass. There's a whole bunch of sort of analogies that I could bring to the table, but anytime you've got to tickle the ears up front of the client and you succeed in doing that, I think there's a 50-50 chance that's going to come back to bite you. However, there's some bad news that I've had to give clients, but I've then conditioned or tempered that with, and this is why we say that. I would rather under-promise and then over-deliver at the back end because things worked out better than what I forecast, because I was erring a little bit on the side of it may not happen the best way that we want. And so, the management of the client's expectations is certainly going to give you a competitive advantage as well. And obviously, your poor quality is going to lead to more reworks, possible legal issues, and of course, ultimately, the worst thing is damage to your reputation as the business and brand owner. Right. Area number 3, financial management. Right. If you want to thrive, you got to know your numbers. We've talked about that lots of times. You've got to have really strong financial controls. Your budgeting has got to be in place. Your cash flow management has got to be good. You've got to have accurate job costing, estimating, and back costing. So doing cost engineering and auditing. You've really got to be keeping, a healthy balance between, profitability and competitive pricing, And so, for us, you've heard me talk about what I think is an acceptable minimal standard for profit margins. Right now, because I'm trying to launch a building company, we've made a commitment to, we're going to win $250,000 at a 28% profit margin, or maybe less, maybe 25% profit margin, which means I might be only marking up at 33% or something like that. So, that is, there's a strategy to get the cash register ringing. And then at some point once we've got a bit of momentum and a little bit of cash flow, we will then start, on other leads that are coming through, we're going to start adjusting those markup points ever so slightly as we move forward. And that's a strategic calculation. It's like, this is what we do in the first segment of the development or the launch of the business. Phase 2 is going to look more like this. Phase 3, we're going to be up to speed, running at, full altitude as to where we want to be without really, upsetting the apple cart. So, I just think there's all of those things financially, which I think are the most intimidating to builders because, for some reason, most of us are fairly good on numbers. We're doing, 3, 4, 5 calculations and, we're setting out bottom plates and we're marking out, window openings and door openings and all that sort of jazz. So we are good at numbers when we have to be. But the challenge is, I think, is because, you do that on a job site for 8 or 10 hours a day, and then you've got to come home and you've got to run through activity key metrics and enter data into spreadsheets, et cetera, et cetera. And it just is like, I would rather just walk on fire, than do that. And so, it's why I might have said before, just recently where, we're probably, we're in a position now where we think that building companies should be run by 2 individuals or 2 company owners with complementary skill sets. And it's for the reasons I just outlined above. For me, all I have to do, and I don't, underplay this, but we already do the lead generation. I've got to handle the inquiries for Smith & Sons Coldstream. I've then got to, handle the meetings and do the estimates and quotes in conjunction with my business partner. And then I've, got to close those deals and get them to contract admin. And that's, then I just hand off that project file to Jed, my business partner, and he goes ahead and build it. And I just turn around and whip back to the start and start working on another deal. That, from someone that used to do it as a one-man band, I know when we won the townhouse development, which was over $1 million, over 10 years ago now, it was great, that exhilarating feeling of like we won the job. We got the verbal go-ahead and we now made preparations to go to contract. And yet the minute that we'd got that feeling of, okay, we won it, the feeling was now we've got to go build it. And so, it can be intimidating for, individuals or builders to do job costing, to do the back costing, to pay more attention to the detail in the estimating. So it helps us when we do our back costing. And then we say, well, we're running out of work. So then we start compromising, much like I've talked about, is that we drop our profit margins, which is very counterintuitive, but we're so desperate to get the work, we feel like we've got no choice. And I don't disagree. Sometimes, you need something that is more or less just bridging finance. There's no profit, out of that job. The net profit will be negligible, and you can't sustain that long term. It just doesn't work. And so it's a bad strategy, and it's one that's going to, not help you thrive. It's going to put your business into a nosedive. And so we want to avoid that. So obviously some other things that are really going to, create nosedive in your business is where you've over leveraged, boy, oh boy, when you're taking good money from new clients and you're attributing that to paying bad debt or old bills that you've got that have been sitting there for 60, 90, 120 days, that sense of, you're creating another future problem. Obviously underestimating because you haven't got a very systematic scientific approach to estimating, a project. You don't have the capability to build it in your head accurately. Or you fail to manage the cash flow. You don't know what your level of equity is as it relates to the cash in your company. So you don't know what your cash position is. That's a danger because you end up spending the money that, oh, heck, I can't pay my bills now because I went and bought that, that Sea-Doo or that jet ski or that new truck or whatever the case may be. And another thing, obviously ignoring some financial warning signs, and this is where when it comes back to work in progress accounting or over under billings, understanding exactly what your cash position is, but furthermore, understanding what your fixed expenses are, and then what is your target monthly billables to break even, and then what is your preferred monthly billables target. When you don't know those kinds of things and if you're working with me as your business coach and we're looking at your fixed expense break even point of say 30,000 a month and you've only hit 20,000 a month the last 3 months, that is a warning sign. That is a negative trend. And on the 4th month, you're going to need a miracle because you're really digging yourself a grave. And so, I think what happens is builders, because they're not aware of the trends or they've got no way of measuring or they don't know what they don't know, they're like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Because you don't have any way of measuring or understanding the behavior of the business, you can't see round corners, you can't make predictions, you can't analyze trends. Just because you've had one bad month, you might have had 2 good months. That could be okay. But when you've had 3 bad months in a row, it's not looking good. But even if you're watching those trends, something else is really come unstuck. Something else is missing. And so when we're talking about, ignoring the financial warning signs, you don't even know that there's signs out there. You're driving down the road at nighttime with no headlights. You don't even see the signs. You're just barreling on down the highway and you've got no idea that the bridge is out and you're about to go off the end. And so, not only do we fail to manage our cash flow properly, we don't have any mechanisms in place, and we certainly don't have anybody in our life that can coach us around those really important business principles as it relates to cash flow management. All right, the 4th area is client relationships and communication. Obviously, if you want to thrive, you want to build strong, transparent relationships with clients. If you want to thrive, obviously understanding the importance of clear communication throughout the project life cycle, but also through the sales process as well. I think having a high level of definition for the clients that you can, really explain with a high level of competence and coherence as it relates to the process, that, really does build credibility in the eyes of the clients of you, the operator and the leader of the business. And of course, managing expectations and delivering on promises. The one thing that I've got to ask myself, we're recording this on a Friday, is I've got to go back and just look at my job management software and figure out, I've been waiting on some pricing from some suppliers. The client is maybe expecting a quote for today. I've got to make sure that I communicate and I don't let that client go into the weekend with with lack of understanding as to where we're up to. So I've got to communicate. So that takes time on me to set aside what I would call a little bit of an audit period, maybe 30 or 40 minutes, where I'm looking in my pipeline. I'm going through every single client's file and I'm going, what was the last thing that I said to them? And of course, we like to communicate for the most part inside of the client portal. And that means it's easy because I just go into the client's file. I go into where we're at, whatever job it is that we're doing for them at this point, whether it's in the pre-construction agreement phase or the pre-construction phase or in construction, and we just really deep dive on understanding what was the last communication. Was the ball in their court and we were waiting on a response, or is the ball in our court and are they waiting for a response from us? So make sure that we're delivering on, once you set the tone of a high level of communication, again, like I might have said last episode, is that we've got to start well and we've got to finish strong. So we certainly don't want to drop the ball in that regard. Right. So things to avoid a nosedive in this regard is, poor communication leads to misunderstandings, period. So if they get hot under the collar and they start giving you a bit of a hard time, odds on is it's because you haven't kept them in the loop. They just want to know what's going on. Obviously, that will also lead to delays and client dissatisfaction, which is not going to help you. Right at the beginning of our sales process, we make it clear that we want to convert all of our clients into raving fans, and that really does set the tone at the beginning. And it also keeps me on track, because once I've said that to a client, you can't take that back. They just go, okay, take that one to the bank. He's going to make us into a raving fan. The minute you do something that is not moving in that direction, at that point, you are going to have yourself a bit of a handful, because now you've set the expectation, you failed to deliver, you're going to have egg on your face. So ensure that you are delivering at the highest level. I would avoid over-promising and then under-deliver. What I prefer to do, like I've alluded to, is to be more conservative, maybe pop their balloon, make them shed a bit of a tear in the beginning. And that means we're we're really setting the bar low as far as the promise is concerned. But then when it comes to fruition, we actually over-deliver. That is a way better scenario than, getting them all excited at the beginning and then not even going anywhere near to delivering at that level. That is going to really mess things up for you and the client. Right, area number 5, team development and leadership. If we want to thrive, invest in training and developing your team. Foster a culture of collaboration, accountability and continuous improvement. And then guys and girls, lead by example. You got to demonstrate resilience, a high level of integrity. In other words, integrity is, you do what you say you're going to do, and it's how you act when nobody's watching. That's a pure indication that your integrity is on point, and obviously your dedication to making sure that not only do we start well, but we finish strong. In the areas of team development and leadership, if you want to avoid a nosedive, the impact of a poorly motivated or unskilled team on project outcomes. When you've really got lack of motivation, unskilled team members, that is really going to send your business into a nosedive, because you, the business owner, know how to do it better and that it should be done better, and that's going to pull you away from what you're trying to do on a building site. So ensure that you are acting very motivated and you have a very skilled team there, and that the impact on project outcomes is positive. And obviously, micromanagement and a lack of leadership. That's what's going to put you into a spin in as far as your team development and leadership. If you start micromanaging and you lack leadership and direction, that is going to really send your business off into a fairly negative direction. Right, area number 6 is adaptability and innovation. So obviously you want to encourage innovation in your processes, from adopting new technologies or improving project management. And then you want to be adaptable to industry changes, whether they are in regulations, materials, or client preferences. I think what that says is just be mindful and open-minded. I think that too often we kind of get the whole, well, this is the way we've always done it, why change? I think it can have to do with anything from how we go about, selling, how is it, you've got to be hungry for improvements or innovations within your business, whether it is a process or whether it is a technology or both, that is really going to enhance the way that you operate and act as a builder, both internally but also in the eyes of the clients and also in the eyes of your team members, and how you go about delivering the product that is, what we do. Things to avoid a dive. Obviously, the danger of sticking to outdated methodologies or being resistant to change, that has the potential to put your business into a spin, and how failure to innovate can make your business obsolete. So I think, one of the things that comes to mind straight away is AI. Now, I don't think we're going to lose our jobs to AI, not in the very short or midterm, I don't think. However, companies that are embracing AI and using AI are the companies that are going to outpace your company, and they are the ones that are going to steal those projects from you. And so, I see what AI does, within our corporate business, within our franchise business, within my coaching business, and the use of AI creates so many, or expedites so many of the processes that would normally be done, let's call it analog style. And so, I think we just need to, in some cases, you may not be an early adopter, but the later that you choose to adopt some of these business practices and maybe at least embrace the possibility of, adopting those different processes into your business, the more chance you've got of long-term survival. So if you haven't tried it, don't knock it, So, okay, area number 7 is risk management. You've got to implement robust risk management strategies, everything from safety protocols to contract management plans. You've got to be proactive in identifying and mitigating potential risks before they escalate. And that all comes down to awareness. I think, when we do the SWOT analysis, that conversation around doing a SWOT is where we start to really get deep thinking. And here's the thing too, what you don't know, you don't know. So, I've often I definitely share in training in this room with franchised operators, but also, more often than not with EBA clients. And I've said, look, you're going to work your ass off to build that kick-ass business like we talk about, highly profitable, gives yourself some lifestyle. And then you go get lazy on risk management as it relates to safety. You only need someone to have a very bad experience on one of your building sites, and all of that hard work can go out the window. And that's really sad, because now you're back to square one if you're lucky, because something negative has happened on your building site, which could have been avoided. And so when we're talking about risk management strategies, I would start with safety protocols. Now, the other thing is if you're building for humans, for clients, and you're just doing a handshake agreement with no contracts, that's ridiculous. You're leaving yourself wide open. And one step up from that is if you go and draft your own contracts because, you cut and paste something from one online, you don't even know the nuances within that contract. You don't know how that works. Spend, $2,000 to $3,000 and have a chat with a legal counsel or a lawyer, get them to draft a proper contract that when there is a dispute and your lawyer is going to do this, Max, send me the contract. Tell me what the dispute's about. Then the lawyer will go and do the work and let you know where you stand. Well, if there is no rules of engagement, i.e. contract, you are vulnerable. If you don't have site fencing and site signage and hoarding up and warning signs and all of that type of thing, ignorance is not a defense in a safety, in a negative safety event or where somebody's got hurt or maimed or worse on your building site. They just won't accept it. Ignorance is not a defense. You've got to show duty of care. So, we've got to be making sure that the business doesn't nosedive because of our incompetence. The consequences of ignoring those risks or being unprepared for unexpected challenges is going to throw your business into a nosedive. Unmanaged risks, that can lead to costly legal battles and project delays. And in some cases, business closure. That's what I'm talking about. So, when we're talking about risk management, there's some things that's going to, your attitude towards risk management, there's positive attitudes and proactive attitudes that will help your business thrive. And then there's lackadaisical attitudes, which is going to send your business into a nosedive in the event of, some sort of catastrophic failure. So we've got to make sure that, we don't put all this hard work in and then lose the business over something that could have been avoided. So look, guys, just to conclude, I guess thriving as a builder isn't just about avoiding the pitfalls. Really, it's about actively building a foundation for the long-term success. We don't want to be just like I've said before, you are either going to operate a business by design or by default. One of those two. I talk about that, I ask a lot of guys, do you think your business is in a state of chaos or state of control? 9 times out of 10, they're going to say to me, Max, I think my business is operating in a state of chaos. Well, chaos is a natural byproduct of disorder, okay? Disorder breeds chaos. What is control? Control is bred through having order in your business. It's a natural byproduct. And so we've got to have systems and people in that in your business environment to bring about order, okay? And that will give you some control as a business owner. Conversely, you're going to end up with chaos, and you don't want that. So, guys, if you've got any questions, email me, max@elitebusinessadvisory.com. I would say that link will be in the show notes below. Feel free to jump across to elitebusinessadvisory.com. hit the book a consultation button if you want to talk to me about, what does it entail coaching for contractors or builders. What I intend to do in that time. There is no hard sell. You'll get more of this, but it'll be more targeted towards your business. And we'll just push some buttons and we'll just chat a little bit about what's happening, and we'll look for the gaps in your business, and we'll do a bit of a root cause analysis, and we'll make some suggestions. And then we can talk about whether or not you'd like to have me in your corner, helping you to develop your business and move it into a position of profitability and order rather than lack of profit and chaos. So have a think about that. Like and subscribe. One of these drops every week. Get across to B4B VIP or Business for Builders VIP on Facebook. That's a private group for builders and general contractors, subs even, and apprentices. Get across there and just start to really just listen to what that little community of general contractors and builders starts talking to. And that will help you build a kick-ass business. So until next time, all the best. I'll see you on the next episode. Cheers.